you for inviting me on this talk. I've been looking forward to this. Always love to share some of my thoughts and also and just learn as you'll hear that later as what makes me what makes me tick. But again, learning from all of you guys what's top of mind. But just a little bit about me. I've been here for almost 5 years, almost 5 years. And it's been an incredible ride, and it continues to be an incredible ride, right? So, I came here, I'll give you a story. So, one of the things was as I was looking for my next job, so I had just left GE and we got acquired by, I was at a vertical SaaS company, pre-IPO, joined the team to basically take the company public. And before we did, we sold the company to GE, and I was at GE for a period of time. And so when I wanted to find my next job after I left GE, one of the things was able to meet some of my investor friends that I have, got connected to CK, and then basically had a job within 2 weeks. And so it was just one of those things where it was the right place at the right time, and also knowing the right people
Mm-hmm.
and knowing what you want really landed me this opportunity here to ride a rocket ship. And I'd say that's one of the things that for all of us who are in professional careers, it's really important to have that network because it's really who you worked with or who you work for, really, and all the people that surround you really will find you the roles that you have, right? And I think it's so important that that network is not just what you want to do next, but how you also get better in the role that you're in today. So. But that's a little bit about me. About products. So yeah, so here at Talkdesk and many SaaS companies, when we say product, there's two sides of it. There's the building of the product, so it's an engineering side of it and what it is, right? And then there's the why part of it. Like, why do we create these things? How do we grow the business? And that's the product management side of the house, right? And those two things are very important, right? In terms of any SaaS business, where we have to look at what will drive growth of the business. And it could be many things in terms of going into a new market, making your existing customers happy, making them expand within those accounts, as well as how do we lead and differentiate in the market and win, right? So all these pieces. And while trying to deliver probably one of the most difficult products here I've ever worked for in my life, a 5.9 highly available, highly reliable product. And if you know that in most SaaS businesses, it's just 3.9s. The fact that we're running 4.9 plus, right, is a big deal for us. And we've been doing this, and it's been one of the challenges, I think. And as anyone who works here in product engineering will know that it's a tough role, but a rewarding one because there's very few companies that are doing this type of engineering and product in the world today.
So can you talk a little bit about, I mean, you've been here for a long time. And can you talk a little bit about the evolution of the product and the evolution of the product department? Like, what has changed over that time that you've been here in terms of how we look at the product, how we look at the business, how we look at our competitors, how we gather information, and how do we grow and evolve and change? And what have you seen?
Yeah, no, I think, and maybe I'll give you a story of how I landed here too, or why I landed here. Maybe is another
Yeah.
way to look at it. So when I joined, we were a feature of Salesforce. I say that over and over. But anytime people ask me, like, what was Talkdesk like when you joined? We were a small call bar, basically a little dial pad inside Salesforce. We had no sales organization. We had very little marketing. It's primarily a product-led growth company. And we had something special, really. And when I looked at the company at the time, I was just amazed at the logos that we had already acquired. Really with very little promotion of what it is. And I saw that in my last company. And that, it's the beginnings of when you have that, it's like the signs of a really strong product and product market fit, where you don't have to really market and sell the product, it just sells itself, right? And so, but I also saw that it had so much potential to grow into something much bigger, right? And so you asked the question of, why did I join, number one, and two, how did we evolve, right? So I saw that potential and I wanted to join something that actually had, I would say, the raw ingredients of a diamond in the rough, right? To being something really sort of special. And I've seen that repeatedly. That's why I continue to be here and so forth. And, I'd say that, one of the first when you say about growth of a company, you go through pivots of a company,
Mhm.
right? So one of the first things we had to go do, and this was a tall order, which was how do we turn from a feature, basically, a dial pad, into a full-blown CCaaS platform that's been around for 20 years as a market. It's a very tall order, right? If you look at our competitors, they acquired their way in. They acquired a WFM, they acquired a QM, they acquired, digital platform. They acquired pretty much everything that we have and including acquired the AI platform too. We built it all.
Yeah.
So for a period of 3 years, so how do you do that? So we first had to do is basically organize ourselves around that. And so we used to have business units, and that's how we were organized. And those actually, I would say, still exist in our DNA, right? That's why we do still have an AI product area. We still have an industries product area. We still have a platform product area. We still have a communication services area. We have a applications area. Those are really our DNA from several years ago when we started all of those things from zero. Like if you can imagine, we had none of those products 5 years ago, none. And now, this is where we're at today, right? So, and if you look at it, is most companies will go through this is as you have to create those, being hyper focused, in which we did for several years. We did that. We executed. We learned. We have battle scars from the good and the bad, and you learn. And now it's like as all those areas have matured, now last year and a half we decided to all bring it back together, and so and now we have a traditional more organization of having a product management organization and an engineering organization. So hopefully it helps a bit about our history.
I'm going to take what you said because what you said is, important just to sort of what we talked about, which is the hackathon coming up, right? Is that in our DNA, we are creators, right? And we are innovators. And that is how we started. That's how Tiago started the company, right? So it is truly in our blood, right? And truly what drives us. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit. Again, I'm going to give the plug for the hackathon because it's coming up on October 16th and 17th. But I'd love, again, for you to talk more about why this is important, why something like a hackathon is important, not only for Talkdesk, but again, because most tech companies do these. Why are they so important to the DNA of a company, particularly Talkdesk, and also for the people who are involved in them?
Yeah,
Because I
I
know
say
you're involved.
that. No, absolutely. And again, some history, as you alluded, Tiago started this company from a hackathon, and that has been in our DNA from day one.
Yeah.
And so, and why does that matter, right? So a lot of these events are forcing functions to just stop and get creative, creating space.
Mhm.
We have a very large business right now that's scaling. We have many demands from our customers, many demands from our partners, many demands from our prospects and so forth, right? To grow, 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 grow. But sometimes I say this, you get sucked into that vortex
Mhm.
and you don't have time to pause, think, and just start to think differently. And this is important, right? And so the hackathon in many ways is those points and times of the year, especially for a product engineering team, to be free of any obligation that they have, right? As I
Yeah.
said, because we are running a very successful business right now, right? And so we have responsibilities, right? But hopefully give a little bit of freedom, like as you say, to my children, it's like, hey, make good choices.
Right. Right.
Allow them to be free, make mistakes and so forth, right? And so to that point, like a lot of even if you look at some of the products that we have or the capabilities that we have in the portfolio are results of our hackathon. I'll give you one example. The workspace,
Yeah.
that's a hackathon idea. The conversation app, I said about the when we were a feature to then becoming a platform, that was again another hackathon idea, right? So I just gave these examples. Like most recently, we have this new capability, super cool, this AI translation capability that for our digital channels. Again, another hackathon idea, right? So these are just novel approaches, ideas that, hey, something really interesting. You get a lot of smart people together, let them free,
Yep.
and then evaluate, and then say, like, that's a great idea. We need to go invest that we wouldn't otherwise have not been driven toward that, because sometimes a customer, there's a saying, Steve Jobs says, is that sometimes customers do not know what they want. So it's our job
Right.
to actually show them what they need.
Yep.
Right? And so
Yep.
part of that is about, the hackathon is about that, right? So it's been our DNA. We'll continue doing that. And many tech companies, I think, fail because they don't give enough time back to their employees to be creative and to disrupt what they're doing today. And this is
Yep.
not true in product engineering, it's across all functions, right?
Yep.
So
So that's my next question, is that because it is an exciting time.
yeah.
It obviously, because of what it is, there is a massive focus in product engineering when it comes to hackathons, but it is really exciting. And as you said, you just listed off 3 products that came, I think it was 3 that came out, and there may be more of hackathons. How can other people either get involved or cheer people on? Like, how do other people on other teams let themselves be part of this energy and
Yeah,
excitement?
so it is open to anyone. So I'll give you an example. Last year, and this one is just in my mind, Jordan Shields. PS,
Yeah.
giving them a plug right now.
Yep. Yep.
But our PS organization, awesome. And just like the ideas they came up with were amazing. And so I say this is like these ideas and the projects don't necessarily have to come from the product. To me, this is just an event that we organize. It's open to anyone. Find some find some people to work with and just go. Right? And if you don't have a team, if you have a good idea but you don't have an engineering team, we have an idea tracker, post it there and see if people will be wanting to join that idea. Or maybe there's a great idea, but maybe you need someone to think through the value proposition, the business, like whatever it may be, also be able to join that team. So it's all open to anyone.
And then at the end, there's awards.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what you've been a judge? Are you judging this year
Yeah.
as well? Okay. So what are the awards? Like, what kind of things are the judges looking for?
I
And
would say that I will keep that a little bit close to me right now.
that's fine.
But we will share that. We'll share that
Yep.
shortly.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say, and I'll give you a plug on this is, prior to a while back, I was working at a VC firm, so I looked at a lot of interesting companies. So what I look for is different than what others look for, but we are going to have a set of awards that will be appropriate to what we want to see coming out of it in terms of ideas and types of ideas and so forth, right? So.
Well,
So
and so
sorry, I'm evading the question. I am evading the question, but
and I won't,
more to come on
again,
that.
even with my lawyer background, I will not persist in this. I understand exactly why you're avoiding it, and I will absolutely participate in that avoidance. But what
Yeah,
I will say to
but I
people,
think like, with anything like with hackathons, ideas are a dime a dozen. They actually are, right? The question is like, what problem are you really solving, and is it worth
yeah,
solving? And when I say worth solving, is it valuable? Valuable to whom? It could be valuable to our internal teams. It could be valuable to, let's say, our partners. It could be valuable to our customers and so forth. It's a really important lens. And for anyone here, and I'll say this is who wants to be an entrepreneur, is one of the most important things to understand and validate. And part of the hackathon is about the novelty of the idea, but also is it viable? Because when it's viable, then it becomes something, and then just an idea that just is just an idea.
yeah, yeah. So for those of you, so we're putting up information about how to participate. And
Yeah.
again, the awards ceremony is on October 21st. So the unveiling of what Rei is talking about will be on the 21st. And that, I believe, is also open to anybody to
Yep.
go and listen to the awards. So highly encourage people to get involved. You hear Rei's excitement around it. So
Yeah,
again,
and it's just I would say if you haven't tried it, have some fun. I say it's a safe place. No idea is a bad idea. Just the fact that you came up with something and tried is probably most of the battle, right?
right.
So,
Right. So I want to go back sort of in this vein, and something that you mentioned is that the customers don't always know what they want. You have to show them what they want.
Yeah.
So obviously, customer relations, and we're customer obsessed, and that's really important. And you never want to tell somebody, to the customer, you're nuts, you're crazy. That, Ray, how do you do that? How do you approach customers in a way to get them to shift their mindset in terms of, and while maintaining that relationship of trust and validating their concerns? How do
Yeah.
you go about it, and how do you train your team to go about doing that?
I think it's just being curious. Yeah, our Bill, our president, has a
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
and it's
Get
very
curious.
true.
Yeah.
I'd say, for those who are successful in a product engineering role, you have to be curious. And then curious about, like I have a 6-year-old always asking me why about this and why about that, and why did you say this and why about that, right? And you sometimes you lose that sort of like why, right? As we get older, but it's important that, I think as we try to discover like the underlying motivations of our customers, right? Like what are they trying to achieve? What
Mhm.
what is that person who's making a decision trying to achieve? Maybe it might be a personal thing or a professional thing, for the business and so forth. And I think that's where people, when you hear from our customers and prospects, they're just voicing what they're trying to voice something that they want to achieve something that they want. Does that make sense, right? So they're voicing like, I need this so I can achieve that, right?
Right.
But what happens is if you don't link the two and understand the underlying reason why, right? Then you might go off creating something that may not actually get them where they want to go.
Mhm.
That's where I do think is deep relationship. It's important because that's where you start to really understand the motivations of our customers and where they're at and where they're trying to go. And ultimately, being in partnership,
Mhm.
that's when it is magic when you have when you have relationships like that with your customers, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, for sure.
I say that to a lot of our, to a lot of our staff and that's why we have a product sponsor program right now, so that we do have people who are assigned to an account to
Mhm.
understand just deeply just the business, And like I said earlier, is that we're here to help them grow ultimately to be successful. And so, a lot of and when you ask this question is that sometimes and this is about sort of consulting and being advisors that what this is what you actually need to go do to get to where you want to be versus
Yeah.
here's my list of things, and helping people to really, I say, ruthlessly prioritize
Yeah.
because right. And
Right.
so um and that's an art that happens over time, right? So
Mhm. How do you take all of the inputs? You talked earlier about product, that some of it's market driven, some of it's customer driven. You must get a lot of inputs,
yeah.
right? From customers, from the sales organization, maybe from the professional services organization, from the market research you're doing. You could be running off in a million different directions, right? About creating this product, sidelining this product. How do you ultimately take all of those inputs and decide what's going to be on the product roadmap? So how do you just talked about ruthless prioritization, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because as you said, we could run off in a million different directions and create a million different functions and features and products, but we can't. We have a business to run. So
Yeah.
how do you take all those competing asks and needs and wants and put them into a roadmap and say, this is what we're doing this year?
Yeah, I'd say that a lot of this comes down to knowing what mountain you want to climb,
Mhm.
right? And that's something that we do very regularly in review. Like, is this the mountain we want to be on? Are we climbing it at the rate that we want to be to get to its pinnacle and summit? Is there other ones that we now need to plan for as next, right?
Right.
And what and I using this in analogy here, maybe there's storms that come in and then derail you or something
Right.
bad happens and you need to adjust. So in many ways is that story I just told you is really product in the sense that first you have to know we have to go. And I said earlier, is like, who are we going to compete against? Who do we need to win? What do we need to do to grow the business and so forth, right? While all the things that come in that may compete and so forth, right? And understanding, which ones will actually move the needle,
Mhm.
right? And this is the virtuous cycle, because in a SaaS business, our customers and retention renewal is incredibly important.
Right.
It is the most important thing in a SaaS business. You have a good customer base that retains, you can grow like heck,
Mhm.
right? And so at the same time, you need to understand like where you have an existing customer set, but that may not be the only place that you're at. Maybe there's a second one and third one. So that's why we made these investments, around FedRAMP and so, different industries and so forth, because those are deliberate moves to think about where do we want to go next, the mountain that we want to go climb. And it's a hard one to go up those, right? And it's not just a simple, we get there in 1 month. It could be quarters, it could be years to get there.
Years.
But you
Right.
need to have that sort of foresight to plan ahead, right? And so at the same time, as you're climbing these things happen and you have to adjust. And so, and this gets into, like I was saying earlier, is that as we plan ahead, we also think about short term, like what are things we need to address as we move ahead, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why there's no, this is set in stone. This is the way we plan. A plan is a plan, and we adjust as things unfold, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where, as you said, is and a lot of what we're doing right now is providing a lot of transparency around this, right? So whether it's with the success organization of existing customer needs,
Mhm.
sales organization about wants of potentially new types of customers and markets that we're going into, whether it's like, hey, we have partnerships and projects that are going live, and we have challenges to get them successful, because that's super important, right? So just
Yeah.
examples of how we are balancing all these things while we have this mountain to climb that we must go to.
Yeah.
That is where we're going.
Yeah.
There's a saying of AI, right? So that's
Yeah.
where we're climbing right now,
Yeah.
right? And there's a path to get there over time, right?
Yeah.
So
So I'm going to switch a little bit to leadership. And because you sort of brought me into this naturally, as you, as the leader of the product organization, you have to be focused on that mountain, right? Because you've got all sorts of things to think about how to get up that mountain. But you also have to be focused in the day to day,
yeah,
right? As you said, what are the needs? Are we meeting the needs of our customers now? And are we, and then are we going to meet, and then how do we meet the needs of our future
yeah.
customers, perhaps? How do you balance that as you, as the leader, but also with your teams to keep them, because that's a real, you got to think about both things. How do you help your teams balance their thinking and their work around all of that?
Well, it's similar to how I just described that,
Yeah.
described having clear goals and where we want to go and a plan to go get there. The plan's really the roadmap, right?
Right.
It's that's whether it's that, myself, whether it's my incredible team that I have, we all are thinking in the same structure,
Yeah.
right? And that's how making sure that each piece of our portfolio fits in the larger picture, super important, right? And so we were having actually in a few weeks, an offsite just to even have a discussion to refresh what we're going to do in the forward-looking 6 months now, right?
Mhm.
Beyond 6 months, right? So beginning of next year, right? So, and this is the forward planning that we're looking at now to what's next ahead of us. Do we need to go shift investment from one area to another as we've learned, or that maybe we're not going as fast in a certain area, or maybe we're going too fast in a certain area, so we have to then slow down a bit, right? So all of those considerations as we think about what to go do next, and when I say the mountain that we want to go climb. So making sure that myself, team, engineering team, everyone will have the same path to get to.
Yeah.
Super important. That's what we do very, very regularly.
Yeah. Who are you talk, I mean, obviously product engineering goes to, right. Everybody says that, right. You're linked together even in the title, right?
Yeah.
Who else are your major internal client? Who are your internal clients?
internal customers. So I
Yeah.
just so
We talked
so I
about
would
some of
say
them, but
that
who are
yeah,
they and how do you, because again, we talk a lot about silos, right, at this company.
yeah,
And again, and we're trying to break those and then, and do more cross-functional work. So you're a perfect example of someone who's sort of the middle of the, like there's a lot of spokes coming out from you, right,
absolutely.
in terms of that. So again, I would love for you to talk a little bit about how
Yeah, no,
you
absolutely.
see
It's
doing that.
very important. So first of all, so one of the things that myself and Manil do, we sit on Bill's customer journey staff
Yeah.
leadership. So it's really important that, this we are one organization. We have one mission, right? And
Right.
it's each person has a responsibility, and I say about it's a high performance teams, is that we all rely on each other to be experts in our craft.
Mhm.
And when all these pieces come together, you've seen a basketball team, you get five on the court and everyone's doing their job, things start to happen, right? And
Right.
so important that everyone knows each other, everyone can complete the sentence of the other person. And that only happens with investment of time. So we spent a lot of time. So when I say who, so what are those stakeholders, right? So we think about marketing, about
Mhm.
what do we want to promote, our customers, so customer success, right? Got to keep great raving fans. We got
Yep.
to grow our business on the sales side. We got to basically get the value quickly. So with our professional services organization, how do we support our customers when they have challenges? No product is perfect, right? And so if you look at all those different functions, play a very important role. And in many ways, depending on, and this gets into a second part of, products, go through a life cycle. Some are, you've seen this, and as I said earlier, 5 years ago, starting from nothing, right, to then having thousands of customers on some of these already. It's just you go through a maturity cycle as products start to become early and they start to get traction and they start to mature, right? The needs change. The needs change. And when I said earlier about you can't, this is where again the hackathon and innovation, and this is also the innovator's dilemma, is the successes that you had to get to where you are now may not be the ones to get to where you need to go. So you have to think differently and you have to constantly challenge the status quo. Do we need to
Yep.
do something different? And that's why I
Yep.
talk about growth and growth mindset and everything else is that, always be looking at, is there something better we need to go do?
Mhm.
Whether it's in the product, the way we do things, how we interact, the customers that we have, right? So, and that's really important as we introspect and look at what we want to get, where we want to go and what we want to be, right? Always looking at that.
Yeah. Do you have a product or a feature that's near and dear to your heart? Do you have a favorite child?
I do not. They're all
You
my children.
really?
Yes, they are.
Hmm. Hmm. Probably,
Yes.
I'll
No,
leave it.
because I do think it's like I was saying, they each have, like I say, they have a role and responsibility in the larger picture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think each one has, whether it's to create, disrupt the industry, whether it's to just propel us to just grow and fuel the engine,
Yeah.
right? Right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? To
Yeah.
help, some are here to just help our customers think differently about things, right?
Yeah.
Some of it's just like we just got to get stuff done, right? It's like this is just meat and potatoes, and we just got to do it, right? So each one is really important to service, like I said, the needs of our customers, but also what customers we may not have in the future, right?
Right. Right. Um, how do you feel about AI? Are you fully on the bandwagon? Do
I
you?
am. I would
Yep.
say that, and then maybe, and this is the reality distortion field, that I am in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's true
I'm
too.
actually drive up and down the valley and you see billboards about the topic, right? But,
Right. That's true.
I would say the following. It is a disruptive technology. This is one of them. Just like, and I hate to say this, the internet, for lack of better words,
Right.
disrupted premise
Yep.
25 years ago, actually, right?
Yeah.
That's the internet boom. Remember dot-coms?
Yep.
Right? That
Oh
was
yeah.
a fundamental shift of technology, right?
Yep.
The second one, um, Mobile, I'm like looking at
Mhm.
this right here. That was the second major shift that happened about 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Then yeah, third one, we had cloud. Think about Amazon, AWS, and everything else. AI is the fourth one.
Yeah.
It is a fundamental, and if anything, it's probably even more disruptive than those ones that I just talked about earlier. So there is a tremendous amount of capital being piled into this category. Lots of interesting startups and smart people just pouring into this. Just like every one of those disruptions had the same characteristics. But what's really interesting is that each one of those shifts, the cycle to get the value has shrunken. What I mean by that, it takes less capital, less time to show value
Interesting.
than it did on all these other ones. And that's what's most interesting because I guarantee you, um, I have a friend who's an investor and he has this failure museum of all the failed companies. There's lots of them, right?
Sure.
But to be fair, the idea of like whether to come up with an internet store to sell pet food, I'm probably dating myself here, right? To what's coming out now, fundamentally more complex, faster to market. And so you're going to see a lot of disruption in this space. And I'm saying here at Talkdesk, we're right in the middle of it. And that's why
Yeah.
I'm so excited about it, because in many ways, there's only a few areas that the application of this technology could actually drive that. When I say back to value and what matters to our customers, customers aren't looking for AI. They're actually wanting us to solve real problems, right? It just AI happens to enable that in a 10x way.
Yep.
That's that. Hopefully that helps a bit here, right? Is that we're just using this is our hammer right? that we're using to really drive things, and actually I think that this in the customer experience space, that's why there's so much energy and why I think we've been fortunate because we invested in our AI platform organically 5 years ago,
Yeah.
6 years ago, right? So, um, and that helped us because as we evolved it over the years. And as we adopted, it was quite easy for us to pivot, change, improve, and so forth. And now that's set us up for really has set us up for success. And we're actually in leadership right now. Compared to our competitors right now, we are definitely in leadership in terms of innovation, thought leadership, even traction, and so forth. So, and this is the first inning. I really
Hmm.
say that because this is where it will start to amplify. And if you think about our industry product portfolio, also just pulling through a lot of our AI, it's everything is coming together right now,
Yeah.
right?
How do
And
we make sure that we continue to stay? Because as you said, people are going to catch up, get the capital and catch up, right? Because the time period's shorter. How do we make sure at Talkdesk that we maintain our lead
yeah,
in
and so
our innovation and our growth and our all of that?
yeah, so we made a really difficult but important decision to overinvest in this area this year.
Mhm.
So we did have to slow down areas to make sure we what I call protect the investment and grow it. And that's one from just a pure just investment allocation and focus point of view, right? But two, you think about this is then, like I said earlier, experimentation.
Mhm.
So the hackathon is just an example of one, right? But there's more than that, right? And so part of this is, like I said earlier, is we got to understand what our customers are trying to go do
Mhm.
deeply. So that's why we're having a lot of like customer engagement, whether it's success organization, sales organization with product as well, really understanding the need. How do we create sort of like problems that we want to really solve? Or I'm sorry, how do we create solutions to problems
Yep.
that need to be solved? Right? Sorry, that was
Yep.
the wrong, it came out
Yep.
wrong right there.
Yep.
And then from there, so sort of the balance of that. So there is sort of like what customers are asking for, yes. There are things that they have not imagined yet. And this is where it's the balance of these two things coming together. So this is where I think for anyone is in this space, like this is just a fun time to be in because there's just going to be a lot of interesting innovation in this area that's coming out. And you've already seen this, in the last every quarter, every month, every week, there's something new coming out. And that's just the pace of innovation, like I said, is 10x compared to what I've seen in these previous disruptions, right? And we're right in the middle of that storm. And we're like I said, we're climbing through the mountain and we know where we need to go.
Yep.
Right? So and we have a plan to get there. So
Yep. Um, so I'm going to keep talking about leadership a little bit, but I want
yeah,
to talk about sort of your leadership style because you and I have been through some tough, not you and I personally together, but but we've been through some tough times, right? Where we've had to make some hard decisions about people on the team or products that are that aren't going to be at the forefront, which impacts people. And Rei, one of the things that I speak about you often is that you have such a wonderful way of thinking about the business needs and the decisions that are being made, but also keeping the people in mind. And you are someone that I always hold out who does a really good job of both of them. You can get behind the business decision very quickly, but you also are always thinking about people, and the impact on people. And I want you to sort of talk to people about that, because and how you learned that, and were there people who you watched do that, and why that's important to you? Why are both, because both of those things are really important.
Yeah.
And so how do you get yourself there? Because I know you are a people person at heart. But so how do you get there to understand that this is what's right for the business, but we need to take care of people also?
Yeah. So sports. I played a tremendous amount growing up and through college as well. And um, I think that teaches you many things. And I said earlier about the analogy about basketball and high performance teams.
Mhm.
That is my goal with everywhere I work at. Bill talks about world class, in my
Mhm.
view, like world class teams, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Is where we need to strive to. And you look at what we do, and we as a software company, it's a team sport. Like I said earlier, there's different functions are really parts of that team. We all need to, it's all interconnected. One area is not working out, the entire team fails, right? And so, and I say, where did I learn these things? And a lot of it is around team sports, and especially competitive team sports,
Yeah.
desire to win,
Yep.
and what it takes. And so over the years, and I don't know if you have, if any of you have done this, or you have children in doing this, and you've seen what good coaches do. And I said earlier about not just having a plan of where we need to go, but to teach and lead the team through some difficult times, right? Making difficult decisions, but no, and owning those decisions, right? But also having a plan to get to where we need to go, right? And I think that's where I learned over the years is that there's things you can teach, and you really look for those things, right? As long as you have the right attitude, energy to
Yeah.
learn, super important, and sometimes there are just people just don't have that innate nature. I say nature, right? And skill.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out. And I think that's where, if that makes sense, is that we need people who want to learn and be part of the team and want to go somewhere and have that desire to win. And we have that combination, I guarantee you, you can create incredible teams, right?
Yeah.
Incredible results, right? And that creates also focus and also energy to invest and then to really get through the tough and get through the highs and everything else. I learned that, and I continue to teach that in my business life and so forth. And I also get that through my mentors as well. So
Mhm.
I myself, I constantly look at, I'm not perfect as well, right? I look at how do I improve, and I have my own network of professionals who I lean on to help me, to advise me and to grow too, right? And I think that's super important. I learned that very early on in my career, and that that's stayed with me over many years, right? And so, and some of those mentors have stayed with me, some of them have been replaced with new ones, and that happens because you end up growing and changing, and people who are coaching you, just like in sports, you either outgrow them,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
maybe what you're working on may not be the thing that they're experts in. So you actually have to look for people who can help you and advise you and coach you and mentor you. Super important because it's not you can't figure this out yourself.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the world, right? So you can, and part of this is about, you want to, experiment and make mistakes, but ones that you can survive from, let's just say.
Yep.
So, and that's where
Yep.
mentorship and coaching actually starts to come in,
Yep.
and that's what I learned many years ago. It keeps with me too. I tell my folks too, like, this is important. You go do this. And I say that to anyone who's starting out in their careers as well, right? To go invest in that, because the
Yep.
relationships do matter. Like I said earlier, it's who you know, right?
That's right.
Who you work with or who you work for, you know? And that some of those people may end up being your coaches, or
Yep.
sometimes you end up being their coach, right? So it's all, this is a, you know, it's a continuum of growth.
So, can you pinpoint a point in your career or something that you did that you would consider a failure, and how did you learn and come back from that? Because we all have them, right? I mean, as you said, nobody's perfect, things happen. And to me, it's really about sort of the resilience and the grit and how you recover. So I'd love to hear from you if you can think about a story or an anecdote that you wouldn't mind sharing and how you sort of came through that.
Yeah, so I would say early in my career in product, so you first have to have grit and belief. Like I said earlier, sometimes customers may not know what they want. There's a fundamental belief of that, right? And so, and I think all product engineering people have a vision of where they need to get. So, and that's what makes, that's the leadership part of it, right? Now, at the same time, you can't get too blindsided by your desire to do something, right? And I remember early on, like I got good signal from customers in the market, but that wasn't the right set of customers that ultimately that I needed to have to win. And you need to be able to adjust and pivot as necessary. That's the hallmarks of an entrepreneur, right? And I learned that early on, and I failed. Actually, that was my first product. It basically did okay. I actually did okay in the beginning, and then just burned, and I had to quickly pivot. And I had to, you know, and this is one of I remember this. My boss, right, who I pitched early on to get funding for the first product, said, Ray, why should I trust you again? And to get a second investment round, right? And but you know, a lot of it's like the failures that you learn, they can see that. So okay, you learned. So we're not going to make that same mistake again, are we? So then as part of it is like you learn and adjust. And what I'm trying to say is that you need to, like there is a saying about failing fast, and you're constantly learning and trying things. You can't be too tied to the things that that you have decided on because of pride, or sometimes just too much conviction in terms of not listening to what you need to listen to. That
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, right? So, and that's a hard thing to do for anyone who's an entrepreneur. Right? Telling being told your baby is ugly. I hate to say that, but
Right.
you know, but sometimes
Right.
that will happen, and you need to like, okay, I need to say why, and then adjust as necessary, right? So, and that, you know, I've followed that rules. Like, you know, as we invest, we gotta get good data and not be
Yeah.
too blindsided with um opinion, let's just say,
Yeah.
right? So, but at
Yeah.
the same time, you need that opinion to get things started.
You need both the ego and the humility, right? You need to,
Absolutely. Because you
yeah.
need a little bit of both, and that's the hallmarks of basically what product leadership is.
Yep. We have about 10, not even, probably about 7 minutes left with Ray. I have plenty of questions, but I just want to pause to see Christina, Helena, any questions out there, or anybody want to hop in?
No questions, but we certainly encourage people to chat them in if you got them.
I know. Otherwise I will keep going. All right. So while we wait for people's questions, sort of the other edge of when you get to the end of fiscal year, where we in fiscal 25 now, I can't keep track of it. As I said, I think every year runs from September to June at this point. So Donna, anyway, at the end of this year, when you look back, what will you consider to be a successful year?
Successful year.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a difficult time for the organization.
Yep.
So this was a year to get things stabilized, focused, and then basically really, I'd say, pivoted into the right direction. And that's what
Yeah.
we're in the middle of that right now.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy. And I know we had to do some changes, but nonetheless, we got through them. But one of them is, as we do this, I would say one of the first things is around success would be a lot first around our AI portfolio.
Yep.
Right. We made some audacious goals. We are pivoting the company right now.
Mm.
And if if we get to achieving the goals that we have set, so there's a few of them, right? So one is just how we are attaching and selling our AI products, how much revenue we're creating from this, how much usage are we getting from it, how much actually success and references super important right now. This is a really important time right now in that part of the product portfolio.
Mhm.
Get that right. This is going to really set us up for next year. At the same time, and that's why I say this is the future and growth and where we need to go. We also were, I think, in the middle of just really trying to get our customer base in a good place right now. And it's really good because I do think if I look back, I just got a board meeting yesterday,
All
and
right.
I look back at, just even 9 months ago to where we're at now. It's a drastic difference to the point of, me and friend were chatting. It's like, 9 months ago, I would have been thrown out and yelled at by many of our customers. Unfortunately, that's where we're at, but now, if I look fast forward now, there's forgiveness because we have been delivering results and basically getting back to the basics, and I think to our customers also in a good place. So I think part of this is about number one, where we need to go, shoring up our customer base, getting them in a good place, right, in terms of adoption and usage and success. The fundamentals, right?
Yep.
Get that going. That fuels the growth to where we need to go.
Yep.
And that's all in progress right now. And that's been sort of the master plan overall to get this machine going. So definitely successful there. And I say the third is really, if I look at our industry motion too, so there, I'd say it's just been so happy in that place where it's just, that is the place where we did over index on customer success and referenceability. Like
Yep.
all of our credit unions in our FSEC area, completely referenceable, all of them. And when you see that, it just lights me up because when you have something like that, that is the hallmarks of a good SaaS business, right? Because references sell customers.
Right. They matter.
Sell customers, right?
Right.
Really important. That machine gets going. We amplify that with sales, marketing, and so forth, and broad-led growth. This thing, just the flywheel just starts to run.
Yep.
So whether it's an FSEC, whether it's in an HLS area too, I mean, it's just amazing to see just the traction that we're seeing right now. If I just look back even last year and the year before that, to not being invited, to being invited, but not really winning, to now just winning, but actually just, I hate to say this, crushing our competition in certain areas, it's just fun, right?
Yep.
And so this is where I think this is, again, all the work that we spent in the last like 24 months to get us to here and the focus and the energy to get our customers happy and to get them live and get them talking about it and also fixing all the issues and everything else. It's paying off right now. Right. And so as I look at this, but this is where, you have that and our AI strategy for the future, have the right recipe for success here. Right. So and this is just, we just need time right now to let that sort of grow.
Yep.
To fruition.
Yep. All right. I'm going to end with two more personal questions that I always end with for people who are familiar with this. One is, we're at your 80th birthday party.
Oh, geez.
What do you hope? I'm not going to ask you who's there. Don't worry. This isn't who do you want to have dinner with in heaven. Don't worry. What do you hope people say about you as they're giving toasts?
That Rei was, I guess, a good friend, thoughtful, there, dependent, like there when you need them, and is able make an impact on those that he worked with, right, and interact with. If I have that, I'd be super happy, right? So that's what I strive for, right? Like I said about people and so forth, right, in relationships. So, and I do think that, yeah, I'd say that that's what drives me a lot of times.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah. Not surprising given, our conversations you and I have had. All right. Last one. This is completely different. It is your last meal. What is it?
Oh gosh, if I was my last meal, there's like so many things I would love to eat. I just love food, by the way. So like I cannot have a bad meal. Life is too short, right? So but oh man. If it's my last meal,
Mhm.
so I love, I'm Japanese, by the way. So there's many Japanese dishes, but the one dish I just love and will go to every plate. I generally have it across cultures and everything else. Deep fried pork or pork cutlet.
Okay.
There's different, variations of this across the world, right?
Yeah.
In different cultures. That is, I guess, my sort of vice. I
Yep.
think about food, right? A great one is just crispy, savory, it's juicy, has umami, tonkatsu. Yes, I just see the word. It's wonderful when it's executed well.
Yep.
It's terrible when one of those things when it's not.
Can you cook it? Can you make it yourself, or is this something that you don't make
No,
yourself?
I try to have I cannot do it.
Yeah.
And so there's some things you just say, I'm gonna try to learn, and I'm just like I failed. My return on investment for that to learn that skill is not worth my time. I'd rather just buy it. Right?
Let the experts handle that. Yeah. Someone's going to lunch, they're going to order that. So that's excellent. That is it for me. Before we close out and with my thank yous, and anybody else have anything for Rei? I think you're off the hook. Rei, thank you. I knew this would be fun. I knew
definitely
the reason I wanted to start
and
here with
I
you.
think for anyone listening in, this is just like I say earlier, an incredible time to be in this space and being here. And this is, I say, this third pivot in rocket ship that we're creating here right now.
Yep.
And so, I think those who are here is just wait and see this happen, because it's happening right now.
Yep.
Right in the middle of it. And that's, to me, is my parting thoughts here. And there's going to be some difficult mountains to climb, and we'll be here together.
Yep.
We'll get through it, and it'll come on top of that summit. So
yep. Well, this is awesome. So my final plugs for hackathon. So if you want to learn more about AI, there's a generative AI masterclass on October 7th. That can inspire you about all the things that Rei is talking about, but also inspire people going into hackathon. To those of you who want to participate in hackathon, we've put some plugs in the chat, but please, as Rei is saying, get involved. Look what's come of it, of the hackathons in the past, including this company itself. So if you want to be involved, find a way to get involved, whether that's being directly involved, whether that's cheering teams on the 16th and the 17th, whether that's going to the award ceremony where you'll see Rei and give out the awards on the 21st, or whether that's just learning more about AI, as we said, at the masterclass on October 7th, which you'll be invited to. Get involved, learn more. As Rei says, this is a really exciting time at Talkdesk, and we're in the forefront of this this next level. So Rei, thank you. This was such a fun.
This is fun.
Start off the fall, and I'm sure we'll have you again. So thanks, Rei. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, guys.
See ya. Bye.